I'm going to hit record for the rest of the folks who might want to look at this later. In any event, I want to start with just a little bit of fun here. I know that I've probably got students and parents both, some of whom might be kind of new to the college game, and or just this, not just college, but like what is happening once my child finishes high school. And I think a lot of us kind of envision something a little like this. Gonna get up there, no problem.
Okay.
All around. Turn it up just a hair, yeah. Very confident. And we'll just bring it down with that there. Yeah, okay. Knock that out. Knock that back to 10 minutes. Oh yeah, that's my key.
Look at Donnie's like band on.
You get the idea. We kind of picture ourselves when we're new at things, as though they'll come easy to us. This process of figuring out what to do after high school does have a lot of parts to it, and most of us are new to it. So sometimes is actually
history's first rock and roll smashed keyboard.
Great teacher framing that positively. In any event, that's it's late, so I'm gonna get down to business. But I wanted to start with that message that we are all new to this. Most of us, when we do this process, and it can be a little nerve-wracking. And recommendations are frankly kind of a small part of it. I do want to let you know that I hope that I answer these questions for you tonight. The why do they matter? Although they aren't the number one most important aspect of an application, there is an angle that they can show that's important. What do they tend to emphasize? I'll talk about teacher letters. I'll talk about counselor letters. I've written a lot of each. Who should I ask and how should I do it? Sometimes people wonder about what's the ideal thing to do there. When should I start asking? I will go over a little bit how those two letters differ. Those two styles are the main ones that schools provide. How many should I get? Some debate on that, and Arapahoe has a fairly standard answer to that. Naviance, if you're freshman, sophomore, junior, I don't exactly know my audience because I currently feel like I'm just talking to a blank computer screen. I really admire those people that can get on TV and actually engage you like this, because it is hard. So Naviance is something you'll get to know very well as a senior, and it will basically house most of your college-related documents and things like that. So where does that figure in to letter writing? And then anything else, just feel free. I don't see questions yet, but feel free to put some in at any time, and I'll do my best to answer them. And if I can't answer them, I will write them down and I will get back to you. Where I'm coming from, I said a little bit of this, but I taught high school English for 18 years. I was definitely that honors junior English teacher who everyone thought, well, that's strategically, that's who I need writing my letter. So I have written a lot of them and just been around these kinds of conversations for a long time too. And this is a fairly college-focused presentation. I do want to just sort of acknowledge that. recommendation letters are something that is, I mean, in some ways fairly unique to academic institutions. So that's kind of where I'll angle this. Counseling is a different kind of letter, but those, obviously I read a lot of those every year. I'm in my second year doing this job. So have a sort of a different take on how those look. I'm a parent of teenagers myself, so I have seen that side of it as well. And then maybe most importantly, I really vividly remember being 16, 17 and being just really nervous to even ask my teacher for something like this. And so I want to acknowledge that it can be a little bit of an intimidating thing to do, especially if you're not one of those people who just naturally goes up and endears yourself to teachers left and right. So anyway, that's just a little background. Some of the whys, I think, and this is a big if your teacher or counselor or whoever is writing a letter for you really knows you as a person, they can be a big help in portraying who you are, besides the fact that you have a 3.4 and you got an 1100 on your ACT or whatever, to throw some random numbers out there. They can be that angle of even your essays in which you portray yourself as a real person. It can be helpful to have just kind of an adult who knows you offer that portrayal as well. I definitely think there's a big emphasis on connection here. So, that it is, in other words, how do you connect with these other people? Are they willing to write a really solid letter for you? And is it easy for them? And then I guess the last thing is, these may not get you into schools. They could potentially give you a small edge. So again, I want to emphasize that that these letters are a little ways down, and if you're thinking about things you need to do to apply to college, it's a ways down there, but also nevertheless important to consider some of these things. I'm going to talk a little bit about teacher and counselor letters. Your teacher letters will tend to talk about your skills in class. Are you a reader? Are you a good writer? Are you a good critical thinker? Are you awesome at trigonometry? That kind of thing. Do you collaborate and work well with people? What's your attitude like? I have a just short anecdote here. I had a student in one of my AP Lang classes a couple of years ago who kind of made it really obvious that he didn't like my class every day. He would doze off. He would sit in the front row and doze off, like fairly obnoxiously. He would be argumentative. He would sort of sigh, like all these things, like on a consistent basis is how I remember this kid. And he actually came to me and asked me for a letter at the beginning of his senior year. And my only response was like, wow, like, are you sure you want to ask me? You didn't. My overwhelming memory of you is that you did not like my class very much. And so I don't know if this guy intended to give this off, but his attitude was really loud and clear to me. And I think your teachers owe you honesty in that regard. But attitude, on the other hand, people with great attitudes the letters write themselves. Effort, and then just your uniqueness. Again, you're going to be sensing a theme here. Getting to know your teacher is an important thing. And by the way, this is possible during COVID, and it is possible if you're introverted. I am one of those people myself. So again, I empathize. As a counselor, I tend to interview my students before I write a counselor letter, because there's sort of a lot I need to cover. I will bring, if you ask me for a counselor letter, I'll bring you in for 15, 20, 30 minutes and ask you a few questions. And I can get a broad perspective about academically kind of what makes you go, what else you've done. These are some things that a counselor can speak fairly kind of uniquely to. The school community, everyone thinks of activities and sports and things like that, but have you had jobs? Is there something about your, very meaningful in your life that isn't related to school, those kinds of things. And again, uniqueness. And I can attest to the fact that I have written lots of letters that just flowed right out of me because I knew and loved the student. And then there are letters that have been like pulling teeth because I just really didn't know the person that well. So if you take one thing away from this presentation tonight, have it be that, time spent, not in a phony way, but in a genuine way, getting to know your teachers and counselors a little bit can be a big advantage. I'm just going to go through some do's and don'ts here. Do ask a teacher in a core area if you can, and that it need not be the English teacher, but science, math, social studies, foreign languages, you know, which is like considered slightly outside the core at Arapahoe specifically, but I consider a core academic class. Those are probably where you want to go. Definitely, again, ask somebody who knows you. If nobody knows you, then now's your chance to get going on that. There's time, I promise. Do ask in person first. This is a big one for me. And I don't know if I speak for everyone necessarily, but it's a bit off-putting to either get an email from a student first, or sometimes this is even worse, if I get the Naviance like notice that somebody asked me for a letter and they haven't contacted me. It's just a bit off-putting. I would say I think it's a sign of respect to your teachers. It just feels different if someone says, hey, do you have a minute? I have something that I need to ask you. Again, I get that we're all behind screens this year, but this will be possible down the road, and not too difficult. Do try to ask junior year teachers. I would say if you know sophomore teachers really well and they're a core teacher and they can really speak to how well you do things and know you as a person, that don't ask a junior year teacher that you don't know just for that, but I would say that's the goal. Find out if your school requires a counselor letter. The school websites stay up to the minute on these kinds of things, and without getting too far into sort of the college application weeds, you all, if you don't know it already, will get to know Common App. You'll likely get to know Common App. It's essentially a place where you can submit one application to multiple schools. And I will say their info tends to be a little less up to date. I would say unfortunately, it's tedious, but going school by school is really the only way to get accurate information about what you need. And all the schools have great websites. They're all a little different to navigate. But once you figure it out and go to admissions, that's the key. You'll find the information. Do ask a teacher in a subject you care about, and then just consider gratitude. Not so much me, because I am able to find time in my workday to write letters sometimes, but your teachers by and large are doing this at night and on weekends. So consider showing them some gratitude. The don'ts of asking, this is a common question, so I'll address it. Don't ask a coach for your primary letter. Obviously, if you're an athlete, and sometimes during scholarships, like those kinds of those perspectives can be great. In general, admissions committees care most about academics. Don't wait till the last minute. I would say, especially if you know that teacher, is your junior honors English teacher is going to get hammered with letters. Spring is not too early to ask them. Don't stress on this. You don't need to get off and go email your teacher right this minute. But it doesn't hurt to ask in the spring, especially those particular teachers who get loaded up. You can imagine who they are. I would recommend waiving your rights to see the letter. Your teacher will be honest with you, though. If they can't write you a strong letter, they'll tell you. If they say yes, you should assume that they're going to do their best to paint you in a positive light. So, and although I've harped on this a little, don't worry about burdening your teachers. Don't be afraid to ask. This is something teachers are very used to hearing. If they can help you, they will. It's sort of luckily the nature of teachers at our school anyway. So a couple of Arapahoe specific things I'll get into, and then I'm going to share some quotes, some thoughts I've pulled from other people about some of these topics, and then we'll be about done. Arapahoe's policy is that we send the required number of letters a school asks for, not the accepted number. So you will get sometimes, one required, 3 accepted. Arapahoe, for reasons you could probably imagine, we have lots of students, and to write to, if every one of our multiple hundred seniors asked for 3 letters, you can imagine the burden on teachers. So, and I'll more on that in a minute, just from some other perspectives on it. Counselor letters we send when they're required. Lots of schools don't care about a counselor letter, and and they would rather just see a school report where we just kind of confirm the data that a student is sending them about grades and things. You will know though, and we are obviously happy to write those letters when they're needed. We're not going to put you at a disadvantage, but that's just so you know RAPO's basic policies. I will say, and this is not a knock on private college counselors, but if you're working with them, they will tend to tell you to load up on as many letters as possible. So we do have, there's some push pull in some cases where they will recommend something different than our sort of policies dictate. And those are, I guess those are individual conversations to have. And I would say instead of your private college counselor who is accepting money to might have a vested interest in kind of like, not to be cynical, but complicating the process, ask the reps. The reps beyond those really elite 3% acceptance type schools. Those reps are out there and they want to sell their school to you. So go straight to the source is what I would ask. And then I do see something in the chat. Yes, I just got a question about the bio and Naviance, and I will get to that. Is a future slide, so hang tight on that. Okay. Very good question. That yes, Naviance, there is an area in Naviance where you can, if you write thoughtfully in sort of a biographical statement, it is a big help. So thanks for that question. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Some more thoughts about letters from a couple people who kind of know what they're talking about. This is Kristen Hall, who organized this whole night. And this is her response to the question about, I'm going to pause just for a second. I'm getting a question. I assume you can, I don't know if you can maybe see this, the chat that I pulled up. The question is, if a teacher or counselor writes a letter, does it come back to you, go into the school system, or go straight to the college? In general, you will be waiving your right to view the letter. So essentially the way it works for us is teachers write them, load them into Naviance, and then they're sent directly to the school that way. There are some exceptions, but in general, like I've said, I think it's sort of a better look to waive your rights to see the letter, and just sort of count on the fact that a teacher who accepts, who offers to write you a letter will write one that's as strong as they can. So hopefully that answers those questions. Thank you for those. This is from Kristen Hall, the post-grad coordinator at our school. If a college truly needed an additional letter, they would require it. Additional letters of rec about the same student sound well the same. I guess thinking about the idea that your teachers only know a certain part of you, and so that could tend to sound repetitive. This is from the rep from Oklahoma that works with us. Writing too many letters can impact the quality of letters teachers do write. There's only so much time to invest in each. So get one academic letter, and then additional letters can come from alternate sources. And you all have those adults probably in, maybe in your lives who aren't directly related. They don't know you directly academically. This is from a rep at CU. They don't raise an application beyond its standard. Your application has to have merit in itself. The letter simply confirms the story. That's I think that's a really sort of useful way to imagine why a letter is important, that it's confirmation rather than the information itself. So I interviewed a couple of my teacher friends on this too, just to get their perspective. So just so you know, when you're approaching them, because this relationship between you and the teacher is going to, in most cases, what's going to matter the most. So here's something to think about. Each letter takes 40 to 50 minutes to write, proofread, upload. So it's appreciated if a student checks A, to make sure that letter is required, and B, that the teacher can speak to his or her character beyond just academics. And that's, I've emphasized that already, that point. Every teacher, from another teacher, every teacher is capable of writing well. Don't be afraid of asking non-English teachers for letters of rec. That's really important. We have outstanding writers who also teach science in this building. So don't get too into that idea that your English teacher is the one that's going to write just this beautiful prose about how great you are. Many of us in the building are capable writers. So it's appreciated if requests are made at least a month before a due date. Difficult to prioritize and want to write well for a student who makes a last minute request. That's fairly candid response, but I would tend to agree with that. Pay attention to your due dates in Naviance. This is something that you will get to know more if you're not a senior yet, but keep due dates up to date. I relate to this idea that it is frustrating. I used to take these due dates as fact as well. And it was frustrating when I wrote a letter and then found out that, well, now the students just decided to apply to CU Denver who doesn't ask for a letter. And I had just kind of wasted an hour. So do keep your stuff up to date if you want your teachers to be happy with you and happy to write nice letters for you. Here's another honest response. I write roughly 20 letters every year, maybe receive a simple thank you from half that many. This is an unthanked, unnoticed, and very large additional responsibility that we're doing because we care about our students' future. So showing a tiny bit of gratitude is always welcome. And I'm going to present this short math problem to you. So if you write 20 letters, even if you're fast, I'd say 40 minutes is pretty fast to write an entire letter. Some of us get pretty efficient at it after years and years of doing it. But maybe that's the fastest it would be. That's 800 minutes. That's 13 plus hours of time. Again, teachers are devoting at night on weekends for you. Trust me, as a teacher, I did not spend my planning time or school time writing letters. There just isn't time. So do consider showing them some appreciation. By the way, I'm not asking you to give teachers cash. I'm just pointing out that a little gratitude can go a long way. So 4 quick steps. I'm going to check my time here. I'm doing okay. Again, feel free if it's late, if it's bedtime, I get it. It's pretty much bedtime for me. So step 1 here, ask your teacher in person first. So or counselor. That's the first move, is the in-person interaction. This is just kind of how to get your letters written for you. Step 2 is then you'll go to Naviance, and I don't worry about the details right now, but you will go and make an official request. You'll basically just go into your account and say, I asked this teacher, but you want to ask the teacher first. You will also submit a form to Miss Arnold, and that tells her, Miss Arnold is our technician who deals with Naviance and Infinite Campus a lot and sends all the transcripts, things like that. And you want her to know who you've asked. And that tracking form, that's something to wait till fall. If you don't go looking for it right now, just wait till fall of senior year. Let Miss Hall tell you exactly what that tracking form looks like. It's fairly simple. And then the bio and Naviance, the question that has already come up once tonight. I will show you, it looks a little bit like this. I will tell you, so this particular question, what characteristics set you apart from others and help you stand out in a positive way? I would say, and especially if you're shyer about going and getting to know your teachers personally, then do a really good job with this bio. When these bios are thoughtful, they're gold. I can get all kinds of great information. For the most part, students don't spend the time necessary to make a really useful biography. So if you're going to lean on this, just do a good job. And I would say be authentic and honest. We can all kind of tell if you're showing off. So we want to know the actual person. I want to write authentically about you. So, when it talks about challenges, that you'll see number 7 down here is a significant challenge. Be honest about it. We know that everybody has challenges, and we appreciate. Again, thoughtful bio is helpful. Finally, attend Miss Hall's. She calls it her boot camp every fall. She does an outstanding job. She's incredibly detail oriented. She will walk you through things step by step, whether it's a repeat of everything I just said in this presentation, or if it's something else about essays, about the application itself, about scholarships, finances, all that stuff. She will talk about all of it. So the last question I will just kind of pose to you here is, this is more for students, but are you willing to go make meaningful connections with teachers? It really isn't too late. It really is possible during COVID. Like I understand that it's more difficult this year. But I will say, as a counselor, because I tend to have fewer personal relationships with students now that I'm a counselor, the ones I have tend to be sort of happen on a deeper level, but I don't get to just interact with 150 people every week, so it's different. I really appreciate it personally when a student comes to me and they don't need something, like they don't need me to just change their rec games class from 3rd to 7th period, but they just say like, hey, I just like see the value in getting to know you, kind of thing. You don't have to say it all awkward like that, but students who come to my office and I know they see the value of sort of forming a meaningful relationship with me, that will pay some benefits later on. So takeaways, back to my video that I hope that hopefully you heard loud and clear. It's always, again, weird not really knowing how the sound is happening as you're hearing it, but you're never by yourself on stage. This is my closing analogy here, closing metaphor of the middle school band in the bottom corner, but you're never by yourself. There's help. There's somebody to pick up your instrument and get you back on track. You're all going to be new to this. Lots of parents are new to this. Every year is, and can be a little bit daunting and feel like there are tons of details. We can help you. Everyone else is new too. There's that whole idea of don't compare your insides to somebody else's outsides, right? Even if people are sitting there pretending they know everything, they probably don't. So give yourself some grace, pick up the keyboard, keep going, and eventually you'll have that Weezer tune mastered. So that is it. I'm happy to hang around. That concludes sort of like the formal part of my presentation. I'm happy to share this entire presentation. Just send me an email or give me a call, no problem. If there are other questions, I know it's getting late. I don't see any in the Q&A. I saw a couple in the chat, but I think I answered those. And so I'll give that a minute, but feel free to also just, sign off and go catch an episode of Schitt's Creek before bed or something. All right, I got a couple here. Sure, I can explain. You're very welcome, Johnny. So the bio will basically. I'm happy to, like, if you want to stop by the counseling office, one of us can actually show you exactly what it looks like. But it's basically a series of I would say probably 10 or 12 kind of short answer questions that try to get at some of the intangibles, just to, like, attempts to get to know you kind of beyond your grades and scores. So that's and to do it thoughtfully probably takes an hour or two. To do it not thoughtfully, it's a quick process. That makes sense. Hopefully I answered your question. Again, just go. You are very welcome. No problem. And yeah, again, if there's nothing else, nothing immediate, if something comes up later on, feel free to, I will move. Feel free to email me or call me or schedule an appointment on our website. All right. I'm going to go ahead and